Thank you, John. Thank you. Anyway,
Thank you.
magandang gabi, magandang tanghali, magandang hapon, magandang umaga sa lahat ng Pilipino sa buong mundo. Nasaan man kayong panig dito sa mundo dahil ang Real Pick Yard ay napapanood, napapakinggan sa buong mundo 24/7 sa pamamagitan ng YouTube, Facebook at Real Pick Yard. Ngayon ang ating pag-uusapan ngayon because alam naman ang Real Pick Yard, ang agenda talaga natin dito is we discuss the economic issues, business aspects, ganyan. Ngayon ang ating topic, pag-uusapan natin ang isang industriya na maraming nakikinabang dito, labor intensive din dito at saka it's an industry na may ups and downs din. Now, ngayon our guest panelist natin tonight is si Lee Hunya, si Lee Cesar Hunya. He's the general manager of Toyota Makati. So anyway, welcome Lee. So kumusta ka na? Kumusta ka na?
Okay naman. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. John, so how was your day yesterday, kahapon John? How was it?
It was normal, just stayed at home.
Wala. Tayo naman,
Minimize yung labas.
Tayo naman, we all stay at home. Sabi ko ngayon, it's na reversal of fortunes. Dati pinagagalitan natin ng anak pag umaalis. Ngayon ako hindi na pinapaalis, pinagagalitan na ako pag umaalis. But anyway, let's hear it from Lee mismo because let's have an idea what happened sa auto industry because of the pandemic. Probably you can give us an idea of the pre and the pandemic na ngayon. Come on, ikaw Lee, go Lee.
Siguro, John, let's show yung slides para at least makita natin. No? Okay, yan. The other slide, before this. Sorry.
Before this.
Kasi titingnan muna natin yung historical na kwento ng automotive industry sa Pilipinas para maintindihan natin how the industry has grown. No? So when you look at this graph, this represents the total sales of the auto industry for the past 15 years. No? So when you look at it, medyo yung heyday noong auto industry talaga nagsimula noong 2010 onwards. No?
This is Philippines data lang, ano?
Philippines data lang ito. No? So when you look at it, there are three basic numbers we're looking at. Number one is the annual sales, which is the blue graph, no? Yung bar. The green highlighted percentages is basically the year-on-year growth. And then the gray line is the per capita income.
Okay.
Now, generally, sa Asia, yung naging benchmark was that when the per capita income of a country reaches about $3,000 per household, no? Typically, dyan nagsisimula ang motorization.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, when you look at our history ng automotive, yung pinakamataas nating benta noon was achieved in 1996 where the industry sold over 162,000 units. Unbelievable yung panahon na yan, 162,000. No? So, that was a moment sa industriya nung na-achieve yan. After 1996, 1997 came the Asian financial crisis, bumagsak yung automotive industry. And the declines were actually much worse than what the declines are now. No? And it took the industry 15 years to recover before it was again able to reach 160,000 units, which was in 2010. Now, 2010 onwards, makikita mo that slowly the automotive industry started recovering and the volumes were already increasing. But when you look at 2014, when per capita was already, actually from 2013 pa nga lang, no? When per capita was at 2,008, 2,900, you will see that the growth rates were averaging already at about 20%. Okay? So, actually, the Philippines was the darling of Southeast Asia when it came to growth. No? Hindi naman sa volume, but in terms of growth, what everybody saw was definitely there was a potential for automotive industry in the country. Number one, we have a very high population. Number two, we have a very young population, no? One of the youngest in Asia. So therefore, in terms of future market, definitely that possibility is there for the auto industry. No? Now, when you look at that growth, it peaked in 2017 when the government announced the imposition of excise taxes.
Oh,
So,
okay.
pagdating ng 2017, makikita mo yung growth from 16 to 17, 18%. Nagkaroon ng pull forward. So, pagdating ng 2018, bumaba ang benta, no? So,
Okay.
it went down. But then again, pagdating ng 2019, nag-recover siya. It went up a little bit by about 2%. But then the pandemic hit in 2020. And then now you see that basically minus about 41% ang tinitingnan natin na decline ng merkado. That's how severe the impact was last year of the pandemic. No?
Okay.
Now, let's look at the trend, the monthly sales trend for the past 15 months. No? So if you can go to the next slide. Okay. When you look at 2019, the average sales in 2019 was monthly sales no, 34,000 units.
Are we talking of
2020,
anong all cars yun or Toyota lang?
all cars yan,
Toyota
total yan.
All brands, all brands.
Correct. Oo, all brands yan, no? Makikita mo naman dyan yung breakdown, the different colors represent different brands, no?
Okay.
So,
okay.
last year, when you look at the sales, medyo ang laki talaga ng naging impact noong March, April up to May na lockdown. It took the industry a while to recover, no? So when you look at the numbers, March, April, May, up to June, or even July, makikita mo talaga na grabe yung fluctuation. It was only in September where when the government really started loosening up restrictions that you see volumes going up again to 25, 26,000, so on and so forth. So na-sustain yun all the way. But again, when you look at March, makikita mo na it dropped by 21%. No? And this was because of the announced lockdown noong last week ng Marso. So medyo ang laki ng naging impact noon. Whether what the numbers for April is going to be, we are not sure yet. But again, when you look at the disruption in operations, medyo severe talaga yung naging impact sa automotive industry. So, nung nag-pandemic, ano yung mga nangyari? Number one, last year, nung nagkaroon ng pandemya, siyempre, lahat ng kumpanya nag-ingat. So, there were a lot of stoppages in compliance with IATF guidelines. So, even manufacturing facilities had to stop operations practically for a month. Dealer operations also were halted for the duration of the lockdown. No? So, ang nangyari naman doon is that talaga complete stoppage ng workforce. So, we had to adjust. No? So, luckily for our company, in our company in particular, is that even though people were not coming in to work, we continued paying salaries for our team members, no, all throughout the lockdown. And in fact, even during the lockdown last year, nagbigay pa rin kami ng mga mid-year bonuses ng mga tao, no. This was a way for us to be able to help our team members offset the impact of the pandemic. Now, when opened up operations, this is where we had to really do a lot of adjustments. Number one, when we restarted the operations, 50% manning. In fact, when we started the operations, we started at 30% manning, no? And then we slowly ramped it up. Panic buying kami ng mga acrylic materials to provide protection and setators. Panic buying ng alcohol, panic buying ng dispensers, all of these things that were not normal in terms of operational requirements were now part of the operations. Whereas before...
How about virtual showroom tours? Meron kayo?
Nagkaroon din yan. And in fact, there was a rush precisely for the development of online platforms. No? And I'll go to the specifics of that later on. No?
Okay.
But in terms of the operations, yun talaga ang ginawa namin. No? We reduced the number of cars in the showroom, spread out the tables, reduce the number of chairs, everything. Upstairs, in terms of our team members, no, we opened up new offices upstairs so that we could really decongest the area and spread everybody out and practice social distancing. And then also, dahil nagkaroon ng pagkahirapan ng transportation, we established a dormitory for our team members who did not have their own personal transport, so that they did not anymore have to go home, but they could stay within the facility, which made it safer for them and also for the others that they work with. No?
Mhm.
So yun ang mga
in-house.
naging adjust namin, no, sa operations. Now, in terms of the market, the immediate impact was, whereas before, for example, ang showroom traffic namin, we would have anywhere between 8 to 14 visitors a day in the showroom for sales, no? Nag-zero yun. As
Oh.
in. So,
Mhm.
no showroom traffic, no? Our MPs, our marketing professionals, salespeople could not go out, no? Service, where we average daily units received, no, of about anywhere between 105 to 120 units per day, bumagsak yun, down to around 40 per day. And frankly speaking, until now, we haven't recovered from that on the after sales side. We are looking at about 70, 80 to a high of about 85, 90 units per day. And that's a far cry from our volumes before, where we did 120 to even 140 units per day. So volumes go down, revenues go down. So we had to do a lot of adjustments in terms of our cost, our operation. Kasi survival mode ka ngayon. I mean, there is still a market, but at the same time, you have a lot of players. And the key there is to keep the operations as lean as possible, so that you also manage to eke out a little bit of profit in the end. Kasi at the end of the day, kailangan din kumita ang dealership. Otherwise, wala rin kami ipantutulong sa operations.
May
Nagkaroon kayo
ambulance
mga-
units ba kayo? May
okay,
ambulance ba kayo? Sa
Sorry, nagkakasabay.
products niyo? Sa products niyo. May ambulance.
Ambulance? Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, that's one we were discussing about what product. I'll go to that now. When you look at the shift in demand, it used to be na, for example, yung mga mabebenta naming produkto noon were the likes of the Innova, the Fortuners, no? Yung mga high-end, no? Especially in my area where I'm the GM of Toyota Makati, medyo ang profile ng aking merkado is a little bit on the high side. So the demand structure as well is towards that, no? When the pandemic hit, one of the things that we immediately saw was a shift down to the base models, in particular the Wigo. What people were looking for was an affordable and reliable means of transportation that was also affordable talaga. So, makikita mo, in the absence of transportation, then people started coming in and medyo talagang nagkaroon ng shift in demand structure. Yung mga base models namin like the Vios, yun ang unang gumalaw din noong after the pandemic. And it was only later on that we saw a little bit of normalization in terms of the demand structure. Now, ambulance. Yung ambulance, nagkaroon definitely ng demand. No? And there were a lot of inquiries, and in fact, we've sold quite a number or done a number of conversions precisely because nagkaroon talaga ng pangangailangan, lalo na ang mga LGU. So even ayun, not one of my salespeople just came to me. There's a bidding going on right now with the Department of Health for some ambulance requirements, no? And we expect that this will continue on with the current situation still persisting. No? So ganon. Now, look at the source of sales, ika nga. Ito yung pinag-uusapan natin kanina dyan, yung saan nanggagaling yung benta, ano yung platforms. No? Dati, when you look at the source of sales, siguro mga I would say 30% would come from the showroom or 20% would come from the showroom. But 50% of it would come from the field, no? Mall displays mo, saturation ng mga salespeople mo. Then only maybe about 10 to 15% came from online sources. Facebook, ewan ko kung pwede ako mag-promote Carmoody or Automotive. Yun yung mga yun yung mga websites na pinuntahan, ano. After the pandemic, 90% of my pipeline was coming from online sales.
Oh.
9. That
Kulang
is
na lang,
how
Lazada.
that shift was. Ano ka? Hanggang Lazada, meron talaga. That was the major adjustment that we had to do on the sales side in terms of generating the business, because there was a major shift in terms of the sourcing of our prospects. And this is one of the most important realizations that we had, where the brick and mortar concept of a dealership, we had to now transform ourselves into a more mobile, more virtual, organization. Speed became a very important factor, meaning to say, if somebody inquires online to your website, the response has to be instantaneous. Hindi pwedeng patutulugin mo. Otherwise, you will lose the opportunity, because typically, the behavior of online users is malikot, meaning to say, they click.
Yung attention span is maiksi lang.
If you don't respond, they will now move on to their next interest. And those were some of the things that we had to adjust, and we had to have our marketing professionals adjust to as well, no? Iba na ngayon ang laro eh. There is really more supply than demand. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So now, actually, if you want to buy a car, now is the best time to do it, because there's a lot of good deals out in the market, because there are certain dealers and certain brands who have pretty high inventory, which needs to be turned over. So it's actually a good timing to go purchase a vehicle if you have the ability to do so.
So, gaano kahigpit ngayon? How strict ngayon ang financing on mga cars na ganyan? I mean,
medyo nagigpit, admittedly, no? Before kasi, the volume was so high na the delinquency rates basically were still very well within standards. So,
okay.
when the pandemic hit, it was well within standards. No? When the pandemic hit, ang nangyari is that ang dami talagang families that were affected. No? And I think all of us know of people who are really struggling under this circumstance. No? Pero meron na pa rin available na financing. No? And for us, we have Toyota Financial Services who provides us that financing support together with the other commercial banks. No? But naghigpit ang criteria simply because tumaas bigla yung delinquency rate. So, makikita mo ngayon na the income to debt ratios have changed. The criteria in terms of what they will approve also has changed. If before you were employed for 2 years or so, okay na. Ngayon, they're asking for more. The other problem also is that verification for credit approvals is becoming very difficult. One of the biggest feedback we're getting from the banks is because of the lockdown, for example. Nag-apply, hindi naman mapuntahan sa bahay kasi naka-lockdown yung community niya. So, there's really no way for you to be able to verify whether they reside there or whatever. So, yun yung mga nagiging challenges ngayon. Although, nandiyan pa rin yan. No? It's still available. No? We have TFS, BDO, PS Bank, BPI, RCBC, East West Bank, UCPB. Yung mga banks na yan are still very much active. Only the parameters for the approval has become very different. The other thing that has also been affected is because of the higher risk, the equity requirements have also gone up. No? Before
Okay.
kasi mga 50% na mailulusot na yan for approval. Ngayon, you're beginning to see at a minimum 20%. There are banks who are requiring at 30%. So, kailangan talagang paghandaan if there is a need for you or a desire for you to buy a vehicle.
So nawala na yung mga zero down, ha?
Nawala na yan. The banks have also become worried because typically ang naging finding nila is that low equity loans typically are also the ones who default first. No? So kaya ang mga bangko ngayon to secure the loans, they're asking for more equity.
When a customer walks in, nag-iano ba siya doon kung anong purpose niya, because ang daming bumibili na they use it for grab, like what, mga ganyan, ano? So, do they indicate the purpose of the car ang mga pag-purchase nila? Is it indicated?
Frankly speaking, they should, but they don't sometimes. So depende lang yan, no? Kasi mag-iiba kasi ang financing scheme niyan if it is for commercial purposes, no? Meaning to say,
Okay.
grab or whatever. Kaya ang nangyayari diyan, frankly speaking, is that may mga customer na hindi yan i-declare, no? But there are risks to that kasi pag nalalaman ng bangko. So, for me, personally, honesty is still the best policy, you know. Anyway, you can always work out the loan structuring naman. But it's better to always be upfront kasi magagawan pa yan ng paraan para at least we can discuss and negotiate the rates together with the bank.
Kasi I understand before the pandemic, talagang daming bumibili nila yung mga Vios brand nyo na talagang ginagamit sa mga
for Grab, yung mga PNBS operations, they were using it. So, may requirement pa rin, lalo na ngayon because it seems to be the more or the safer way of mode of transportation. So, hanggang ngayon, demand is still very high for the Vios in particular.
So, kanina pinag-usapan natin ito. Sige dyan, okay.
Question ko lang, I'd imagine yung mga banks would have a lot of units ngayon ng mga narimata.
Foreclosure.
Yeah, marami sila and they resell that into the market, and you can always check with your bank. Meron typically a warehouse where you can go and they have somebody to assist you on that one. And again, depending on credit profile, they can also provide financing for repossessed vehicles. No? In our case, we also have used car. We have the Toyota Certified Vehicles program naman across most of the dealers. So if you want something that is reliable, inspected, and alam mo na medyo there's a warranty behind it, even if it is used, it is always better to go certified. Less headache in the long run.
So, anong sales nyo ngayon doon sa mga pre-owned, sa certified, nag-spike ba yun? Or tumaas?
Practically, ang problem namin ngayon sa certified actually is sourcing. We don't have enough used car inventory at this point in time. Unfortunately.
But you do like trade-ins?
Yeah, we do. In fact, if you trade in your vehicle, may mga incentives yan. We add, I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, we add a 20,000 premium if you trade in a vehicle, no? Lalo na kung Toyota. So,
but you trade in all brands. All brands, you trade in all brands.
Yeah, we accept trade-in for all brands, no? But it's on the Toyota that we provide a premium of 20,000 if you bring in the vehicle purchase.
So kanina we were talking about itong bagong order na in-issue ng DTI. Ordering dealerships to allow cash sales.
Ano yan, as I mentioned, nagsimula kasi yan sa motorcycle industry. Sa motorcycle kasi, meron silang tinatawag na in-house financing.
Okay.
So, typically, kung ang customer may pangangailangan, hindi siya magkwa-qualify sa commercial lending, ini-in-house finance nila.
Which is higher. Normally
which
higher.
definitely higher rate. So, diyan nagsimula yan. And there were complaints that were submitted to the Department of Trade and Industry, sa Consumer Protection Division ata nila yon. And so, because of that case, ang ginawa nila, lahat ng dealers across the board, no? So, pati ang sa automotive, now, you cannot force a customer to buy financing if they don't want to. But frankly speaking kasi, sa automotive, medyo mas mahirap yan eh. Kasi, unang-una, it's hard to qualify for a loan. That's one. Pangalawa, yung cost ng products involved are also pretty high.
Yeah.
So typically yan, ang market profile yan, lahat yan may ability to pay, or majority of it would have the ability to pay. So they're more knowledgeable. So you cannot simply do that sa automotive. I'm not saying na hindi ginagawa. I'm pretty sure may mga gumagawa din yan. But again, with this new DTI guideline, I think it's very good for the consumer because it ensures protection for them. So I very much support and agree with DTI initiative.
But how would it benefit a dealership na may walk-in buyer ka ready to roll out the car, babayaran ng cash? I mean, minimal ba ang kita? Minimal on that?
Hindi naman. Kasi, it's a question of, the pricing kasi is dictated by law of supply and demand. Meaning to say, when you have a product very much in demand, na merong kang pila, I'll give you an example. Fortuner 4x4 LTD, limited,
Okay.
which we launched 2 months ago. Ang pila niyan, mahaba. Ang waiting period mo niyan, siguro mga 5 to 6 months.
Oh.
No discounting yan. Okay. So, the dealer has an opportunity. And by the way, we don't sell it beyond. We sell it at SRP. Okay? So, medyo may opportunity to make income ang dealer dyan. No? Now, product like, for example, a Vios, wherein it's a mass market product, maraming supply, maraming kompetensya. No? When you look at the Vios, for example, you have practically all brands have their own product lineup against it, no? So, diyan hindi ka na pwedeng medyo mamili. And this is where the customer is able to negotiate and haggle for a good price, no? Of course, on the part of the dealer kasi, we also have costs that we need to protect. So, we can only go so far in terms of discounting, no? Although, depende sa product, pwedeng maging malalim na diskwento yan, lalo na kung may subsidy galing sa manufacturer. So, it all depends on the product and again, on the demand. So, may mga produkto na napakataas ng demand na typically hindi ka talaga mag-discount. Or, as a dealer, pwedeng hindi ka magbigay ng discount. No? So, depende na lang sa sitwasyon ng transaction niya.
So, anyway, balikan natin kanina yung pinag-uusapan about the drop ng sales at saka mga more or less, ano ang impact doon sa job displacement sa mga tao? Sa inyo in particular, ilang percent, mayroon ba mga permanent displacement o nagkaroon lang kayo ng readjustment ng work hours?
In our case, it was just an adjustment of work hours. No? Ang ginawa kasi namin is that non-production team members who could work from home, dineploy namin on a work from home basis. No? So, they don't have to come to work. We still pay them their full salaries. No? Pero, andun sila sa bahay nagtatrabaho. Yung production team members, yun ang pinapapasok namin. And that's how we were able to arrive at the 50% capacity. Although 50% capacity kami, yung mga team members namin, we're still working off-site, but at the same time, we decongested the facility. Kasi, protection na namin yung production team members. For example, service. Ang technician, hindi pwedeng mag-work from home eh. Kailangan talaga on-site siya.
Iuwi yung kotse.
So, to make room for them, ang ginawa namin, halimbawa, yung finance, naka-work from home yan, yung HR, naka-work from home yan, some of those salespeople are working from home. So, ganun ang ginawa naming mix so that we're able to manage the capacity of the dealership, be able to comply with IATF guidelines, practice social distancing, para hindi kami nagsisiksikan. But at the same time, tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung pag-iempleyo ng mga tao. No? So far, we have not done any retrenchment of our team members. Speaking for ourselves. No? Now, whether that is true for other dealerships, that one I cannot answer for them. But in general, sa Toyota, the direction is to sustain the current manpower that we have. In fact, in my case, I am in the process of hiring additional team members for sales. If I'm not mistaken, I'm hiring about 20 salespeople in total, or even more.
That will be online.
No, this is going to be a combination of on-site and online. Very
Both skills are needed.
ang ano namin kasi, the perspective we have is this is a hiccup. Okay? Yeah, bumagsak ang merkado. But when you look at the economic fundamentals, it's there. If you look at it, it surprised me that the per capita income last year was still at over $3,000. As long as we have that spending power in the marketplace, we believe that the automotive industry is continuing to flourish. That's one. Second, direction talaga ito ng chairman namin.
Okay.
The role of Toyota is to help in the recovery of the economy. And that's why, for us, employment is a foundation of that recovery. So, ngayon, bagsak, but we are actually preparing for the recovery. And that's why, for us, on the sales side, we are already laying the foundation for that recovery.
So, anong market share nyo sa ang Toyota sa total sa
41%.
industry?
41%.
41%. That is between ilang players kayo dyan sa auto industry?
Marami. Siguro mga 12 or more. Kasi when you look at the graph that I showed you, can you go to that graph again, John?
Yeah.
Okay. Go forward. If you can go one slide. Yeah. Okay. Dito mo makikita, ito, detalyado to yung gray boxes is basically market share, no? And you can see the number of players. Yung others na yan represent a lot of smaller brands. But ito ang mga major players of Toyota, Mitsubishi, Honda, Isuzu, Nissan, Ford, Mazda, Kia, Suzuki, Hyundai, and of course the others, no? Yung gray is the market share. So makikita mo all throughout, Toyota share has been increasing constantly. The peak and the highest share that we've achieved in the industry is 41%, which happened last year, no?
Okay.
So makikita mo, there are some gainers, there are some those who have lost 1 or 2% market share. But in terms of the Toyota brand, we've been very consistent naman in terms of the 39 to 41% market share range. So medyo dominant talaga ang presence ng brand.
Ilan ba sa mga players ang nagsara na? Because I understand may mga manufacturers na nag-wrap up na rin dito sa Philippines.
Hindi ba nagsara? They're still here actually, you know. Kaya lang, they really have shifted from manufacturing to importation, no? So yun ang nangyari doon. Kasi ang problem mo sa manufacturing, of course, there are certain volumes that you need to meet for you to make manufacturing make sense. Diba? And that's really it's all about financials. So there has been quite a number of manufacturers who have decided to close their manufacturing operation but continue to operate locally, no? Part of it as well is the changes going on in the ASEAN region and the trade deals that has been going on within the region as well. So it's simply brands taking advantage of the opportunity to reduce costs and be able to maximize their operations locally. Kaya nagkaroon ng ganung shift. In the case of Toyota naman, medyo ibang direction because in the case of Toyota, we have the volume kasi we have two cars that are locally manufactured. The Vios and the Innova, no?
Ano yan?
So,
ano yan? Ang materials nun, locally sourced lahat.
Hindi naman 100%, but there's a local component for that. Siguro mga 40% yan at the minimum na local source, no? So, combination of parts yan eh. Kaya marami ding part suppliers ang Toyota. Even when you look at the Toyota Santa Rosa plant, within the manufacturing facility, you also have relocators within that economic zone who supply Toyota. So, doon lang nagkaroon ng difference in terms of Toyota's direction because they were committed to really support local manufacturing.
Okay.
That's why it's in case of Toyota, we both import and we also manufacture locally.
So, ilang percent ang in terms of your sales, ilang percent of that are locally manufactured, ilang percent ang imported?
Siguro ang local namin around 40% if my estimates are correct. About 60-40. 40% are local kasi malaki ang volume ng Innova at saka ng Vios. 60% of that will be completely built up units being imported from mostly ASEAN countries.
Kasi may value added pag local may value added sa mga locals.
Definitely, no? And that's the reason why in the case of Toyota, they made sure na we maintained the local manufacturing capacity, no? Hindi yun isusuko ng Toyota. Now, the other thing is that Toyota also, together with Mitsubishi, participated in the CARS program ng Department of Finance. So, again, with all of this, definitely Toyota as a brand is committed to support the local manufacturing industry. Because you have to remember that Toyota, together with two other brands, were the hindi naman pioneer, no? But we're the main participants in the original car development program in the 1990s. So it has maintained its commitment to really support local manufacturing. Kaya when you look at the Toyota's history, no, makikita mo that it has also developed a lot of local part suppliers.
So, anong impact dito sa mga excise taxes in terms of the cost of the vehicle?
Malaki.
How much percent of the total sales price ng kotse is because of the excise tax being imposed by the government? How much percent of it? Ballpark.
Hindi ako familiar kasi sa exact number in terms of what excise. Kasi different categories have a different excise taxes. But I am guessing around 12% yan to 15%. I'm just not sure. Pero nandyan yan, no? Excise lang yan, ha?
Excise lang, hindi pa kasama ang VAT.
Hindi pa kasama ibang buwis yan.
Wow.
So ganun talaga. So it's really part of it's part of it. We have no choice but to really comply. Kasi that's also the contribution of the industry to the development of the economy. So nandyan talaga yan. That's part and parcel of our business.
So how do you see the auto industry in the next 3 years, in the next 3 or 5 years? How do you see the auto industry in the country?
I think yung recovery will take us maybe 2 to 3 years from where we are. Because remember, when you look at the numbers, we were already in the 500,000 range. We're short pa rin. But we were already selling over 400,000 units. So in the case of Toyota, we were already hitting 160 63,000 a year.
Mm.
Medyo we were already the number 8 Toyota distributor globally. So hindi lang
Really?
we were already the
Talaga?
8. We were already there. Kasi going back to when I started in the industry, I started working for Toyota in 1991. Ang volume namin noon was about 12,000 units a year.
Mm.
Okay? Ang volume namin ngayon monthly is anywhere between 9 to 16,000. So yung volume namin ng isang taon noong panahon na yun, ngayon, isang buwan na lang. Isang buwan na lang yun. And that's why when when we get together with some of my mentors and some of my colleagues, we look back on those days where when we were starting, we only had 3 models: Corolla, Corona, Light 8 Crown. Tapos dagdagan namin ng Tamaraw FX. Ngayon, kahit anong gusto mong modelo, meron ka eh. You want the cheapest? Okay, go for the Wigo. You want the most expensive? You buy a Supra. Dati, tululaway ka. Pag tinignan mo yung mga modelo available globally, we could not get it. Because the volume was too low. Ngayon, when Toyota Motor Philippines request for volume, or they request our product, typically they will get it. Because now we have the demand and the volume to support it. We're launching the GR Yaris, which is a homologation model of the Yaris for the World Rally Championship.
Ayan, is it going to be the entry level ng Toyota? Ano yung lower category pa yan ng Vigo?
Cost 2.650 million to 4,650,000. This is a unicorn car. There will only be a few units built of this worldwide, and Toyota Philippines is getting a number of these units to be sold next month.
Wow.
If you imagine what it is, if you imagine what it was before to what it is now, ang laki na talaga ng pagbabago. Now, looking forward.
Okay.
Go ahead, Aten.
Okay. I can see some yung mga model dito. Is it the kind of Yaris na sinasabi mo?
Bago yan. That's a new model Yaris. It's a 2-door special production talaga ito. 3-cylinder, 260 horsepower, all-wheel drive.
Wow!
This is a toy car. Promise.
Pa mga hobbies pala ito, no?
It is, and it's really intended for a niche market. But again, what I'm trying to point out is that before we could not access these models. Now it's easier for our market to be able to get these kinds of models because precisely Toyota in the global market has the clout because it now has volume. So looking forward, I think we should be able to recover much quicker from this crisis compared to the 1997 financial crisis. No?
Okay.
And that's precisely why, in terms of Toyota's direction, it is precisely to prepare for that recovery. So, at least for our side, we don't have any intentions of letting people go. We will make sure to maintain our manpower count, and in fact, we are increasing it. That's one. Second, although the volumes right now is still very fluid, fluctuating pa rin talaga siya, but we do expect that there will be an improvement and a more stable demand, especially once the vaccine starts coming in and that magkaroon ng confidence ng tao. We really have to understand that there are certain segments in our population and in our economy that are struggling. And the idea there is, how can we help by helping other industries in terms of the business?
Okay. Anyway, what's your take on the policy ng gobyerno na not to sell cars for those na hindi maka-establish na may garahe?
I have to change, ano lang ha, mag-change lang ako ng ano.
Okay, okay.
Yan. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, medyo mixed reaction ako dyan eh. One part
Bakit?
of me said, it's correct kasi congestion eh. But at the
okay.
same time, as a business person selling a vehicle, medyo takot din ako kasi tatawaan ng demand niyan, di ba? There are going to
Natural.
be certain individuals na talagang tatamaan yan, no?
Nagagawa ng paraan yan eh. Ang daming parking spot for
Hindi,
rent.
saka, ano
So
lang
I can
dyan?
just rent a parking spot at the
Yeah,
time
but-
when I want to buy. And then I give it up after a month or two.
At saka if you buy your car in Cebu, in Leyte, na walang congestion, you can drive it all the way to Manila naman eh. So,
At
you already have
naman
the
kasi,
car.
it's not that it's not being done in other countries. Actually, it is, no? So, when you look at the policy, it actually makes sense, no? Kasi when you look at what is going on in terms of our city streets where you have cars all over, it's creating congestion and everything, it does make sense.
Mm.
But part of it also is that the reality is, ito talaga yun, no? When most of the infrastructure of the city was built, there was no zoning in mind. Di ba?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay, you build, you have
Carretela.
to have a parking structure for all traffic or this and that. No one did eh. Hindi, mahirap din naman. Isisisi mo sa tao, bakit wala ka dyan? Nandyan na yan eh. So, I have a very mixed reaction to the policy. I do understand the intent of why it is being done. But at the same time, kailangan pag-aralan ng masusi yan. Ano ba talaga magiging impact yan eh? Not only in terms of the dealers, kasi we will find ways of selling a car to somebody else.
Yeah.
What happened to that policy? Is it now being implemented now? Are you guided by that sa mga dealers? Now you only sell. Is it part of the requirement? Is it part of the requirement that you have to prove na meron kang garahe?
Wala. That is not, there is no directive yet to implement it. I know that it has been circulating, especially in social media and the news networks sometimes. No? Pero hindi ko pa sure kung na-aprubahan na yan, it's been passed, but I have not heard anything that would tell me na it has passed and it will be implemented. But again, for me personally, I think they need to study it very well. Not only in terms of traffic congestion, but they also have to understand the situation of the buyers themselves. It's not a situation that they want it, but it's a situation that they've been pushed into. So,
there's too many holes in that.
At saka kasi nag-iba na kasi dito ang perspective ng owning a car eh. It's no longer a luxury, it's a necessity, it's a need.
Especially in this
Especially yung mga online delivery na nag-proliferate
Yeah.
Taas ng demand dahil doon.
Yeah, so
I find it an anti-poor policy. Kasi nag-apartment ka lang eh. Wala kang garahe. If you're rich, you live in Dasma, you live in Forbes, ang laki ng parang garahe mo. You can have 10 cars. So it's for me, I look at it as an anti-poor policy.
Sasabihin naman ng mga nag-online delivery na the car is mostly on the streets. Just only a few hours na nasa bahay siya.
Ano yan, I hope, I really sincerely hope that they really do a more thorough study. They really need to look at different aspects, including the social and economic aspects na tatamaan ng mga sectors nito. As I said, aspirational ang kotse din eh, aside from being needed. So now, when people have the ability to be able to buy, para bang nililimitan natin. Okay, if we have an efficient transport system. Okay, so.
Sabagay, sabi mo eh, wala nang zero down eh. Kaya mababawasan na yan.
Panahon lang yan.
Zero down, you drive your car out of the dealership at zero down? Wow.
Yeah, there were some for programs. Kasi pag ano yan when the incentives are very aggressive, you are able to find ways of achieving a zero equity transaction. Especially when banks are accommodating lower equity like 10 or 15% DT. So it gives you a little bit more room to come up with down payment schemes. Pero on the part of the dealer, typically when you're looking at zero down payment, negative territory ka na yan. But typically yan, it's because you need to move inventory that you really go into that kind of mode. And typically that is temporary. So when you see those kinds of transactions in place, take advantage kasi they don't last that long.
At least kasi yun nga, so at least rest assured tayo ngayon. Sa Toyota, wala na mga zero down.
Wala na. We've gone away from it. Kasi, as I said ngayon, ang situation is very different. The volumes are too low. So if we go into that direction, practically the dealers are not going to be making any income. And again, we need to be able to survive through this crisis. So tulungan lang talaga ito, no? Personally,
Pero,
ako minsan. Go ahead.
Pero yung Toyota, yung ibang mga, how about yung franchise dealerships? Do they also maintain that policy na inaano ng, is it part of the company policy talaga ito na no, walang ma-i-display sa trabaho or depende yan sa franchise?
Depende yan sa franchise Depende sa franchise, no? But typically, most Toyota dealers, my understanding is across the network, we are supporting the direction requested by the chairman to really support economic recovery.
Yung mga work from home nyo na staff, they take home their PC or it's provided by the company?
Provided by the company, no? So we had to make special arrangements. So again, for example, magandang point yan. Dati no one was thinking about laptops as a workstation. Typically kami, very traditional workstation. Ngayon, we were forced to have our team members, ihahatid mo sa bahay dahil dala yung kanyang workstation, everything, no? So now, that influenced the decision in terms of future purposes. Yung purchases namin, kami, lahat laptop na.
Portability talaga.
Precisely. Including yung mga bandwidth namin, we had to increase the bandwidth. We had to create more yung mga access portals namin, mga systems
security.
namin.
Security.
But now you have the payoff naman. You have 90% of your sales coming from online sales. So you have a payoff na lang.
Ano naman?
Mukhang hindi magbabago yun. The online sales is a permanent change. Parang ganun eh.
Correct. Pero again, there a little caveat on the 90% sa online. No? It doesn't mean kasi to say that 90% online, the closing rates are high. In fact, inquiries are high, but the qualified, not necessarily.
Attention span is very small.
Mismo. And it also is a very competitive marketplace right now because everyone across all brands is in the online platform. So, mas siksikan ngayon ang marketplace ng online. So, it creates a challenge of how you differentiate, how, you have to be creative in terms of the marketing programs that you run.
Yeah. Unlike before, siguro yung may mga walk-in kayo. Ang bawa ko, if I decide to go to your dealership and walk in and have a look, I am committed. Kung meron akong certain number of hours siguro na to spend there. Ngayon, nasa computer ako, I can switch from, I can have 5 tabs on different dealerships or different brands.
Ang diferensya nun dyan, if you walk into a dealership, go to the showroom, you're a hot prospect. If online ka lang, kung wala kang time, wala kang magawa, tingnan ko nga. Because going but yun yung doon, it's itong sitwasyon ngayon, a lot of changes nangyayari sa natin ngayon. But anyway, I wanted to ask Lee kanina on the profile ng ano nga yung profile ngayon ng mga bumibili ng kotse ngayon sa inyo?
Ganun pa rin. Actually, it hasn't changed. Ngayon kasi, a lot of, ang medyo nawala are first-time car buyers. No? Na medyo nabawasan yun sa nakita na. Ang karamihan na pumapasok ngayon are replacement, additional.
Ito pala tatanong ko kanina. Anong guarantee ngayon sa mga car owners na bumili in terms of spare parts availability, especially if it sourced out from Thailand or whatever, because di natin alam ang sitwasyon eh.
May buffer stock naman lagi ang manufacturers niyan. So they have more than enough stock lagi to cover a certain number of days. And if there are any disruptions in the supply naman, kasi nakakapag-multi-sourcing naman ng Toyota, so typically we always have parts available for our cars. Now, again, the biggest advantage we have is we have the volume. That's one. Second, because the brands and the product lineup has been established for quite a long time, very stable ang part supply, not only within our dealer network, but even outside. So, you know,
kasi yung aftermarket pa.
Competition that I have. But then, typically customers will always have somewhere to go to in terms of Toyota spare.
So, ang accessibility sa mga parts na yan is, kasi alam mo, experience ko kasi meron akong hinahanap, i-order pa. It will take at least 2 weeks to 3 weeks ang ano. I mean, those things.
Yeah, but anyway, that sometimes happens.
So, trade mo yung car mo. Mas mabilis ko yun. Trade mo yung car mo. Mas mabilis.
Nabili ko yung Nissan ko nung nasa Nissan pa sila noon. But anyway, alam mo, this is a very interesting discussion that we had tonight. I hope we will have another round of this on another perspective naman. So, John, do you have anything more to ask kay Lee?
Nothing more on sa sinabi ko last na I think the mode of online selling is going to be there as a permanent change to the industry. Mag-adapt lang yung how are you going to keep the customer close, how are you going to increase the closing rate. Yun ang ano doon eh. So yun ang siguro ang pag-aaralan doon sa yung mag-evolve sa type ng purchase.
Ito namang pandemic na ito is actually a wake-up call for all industries. Eh. Kasi most industries have always had a very traditional and a very comfortable approach to the business. But this pandemic was abrupt. And it really created a lot of questions in terms of the operation of their efficiency, productivity, and all. So I think in the near future, you're going to be seeing a lot of changes in how dealers run, or auto dealers, or even motorcycle dealerships run their business. This is going to be the start of many.
As you were saying kanina, the auto industry is considered a non-essential industry. How would this
affect? Hindi lugaw,
Yun nga medyo question namin kasi non-essential, pero when you look at it, in terms of transportation, in the absence of one, actually you need access precisely to the dealership, maintenance, hindi pwedeng mag-breakdown ng sasakyan mo. So,
kasi, you know, siguro naman yung non-essential naman depending who's talking. Kasi if you have 3 cars at home, it's non-essential. You don't have to buy.
Kailangan i-develop na yan yung...
But pag nahihirapan ka sumakay ng jeep, natatakot ka, baka mahawa, it's an essential.
Pero yun, si John just mentioned something very unique. Ngayon, one of the things that's coming into play is actually home servicing.
Yes, so mobile mechanics.
Yeah. Meron na kaming mobile mechanics na meron kaming isang high 8 at isang trike that goes around the area to precisely deliver services at home. as requested by customers. As long as the subdivision allows it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
It's either you provide the service.
Whatever is the price plus 1,000 peso service fee, just to cover the cost of fuel and air and everything. A little bit more expensive, but it's convenient. Kasi now you don't have to leave home, no risk. We go to you with all the parts, with all the tools and everything. Even our fleet customers, we have regular caravans.
Pero you only cater to Toyota cars brands?
Yeah, only Toyota cars. Toyota
At saka, I'm just wondering, yung implementation nyo then, is it you providing service remotely or do you also have yung someone will pick it up from the house of your customer and then ihahatid din ulit?
We can also do that. Pick up and delivery. We also do that.
The end of it is that kailangan magpalit tayo ng Toyota.
Okay na.
Okay.
Trade-in mo na.
Kakukuha lang yan eh. Kakukuha lang ng BS eh.
Sino?
Ang datenga nga eh. Dahil pandemic, wala hindi mandan.
8 years na yung Almera ko eh. Anyway, Lee, sige. Do you have any your wrap-up statement, Lee? Because at least naka-isang oras na tayo, buti nga pinagbigyan mo kami. Okay.
Yes, thank you for having me. I hope everybody has enjoyed the discussion here. Ito naman mukhang free-flowing discussion lang naman ito. But thank you for having me. I hope everybody stay safe at ingat po tayong lahat.
Okay. Anyway, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Lalo na ito kay Lee, kay Jan ulit. Sa mga nakikinig, sa mga nagsusubaybay sa realpeak.yard. At sana at marami tayong natutunan dito ngayon. At sana rin naman si Lee ay pagbigyan pa ulit tayo kung meron tayong mga ibang aspeto sa industry na pag-uusapan. Again, magandang gabi, magandang umaga, magandang hapon, magandang tanghali sa lahat ng Pilipinos nasaan man kayong panig sa mundong ito dahil ang realpeak.yard ay napapanood at napapakinggan sa buong mundo 24/7 sa pamamagitan ng YouTube, Facebook at realpeak.yard. Maraming salamat. Magandang gabi po. Thank you.